Bob Kalagher has the real estate market covered. This is Real Estate Matters with Bob Kalagher.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of Real Estate Matters here on the Money Matters Radio Network. I'm your host, Bob Kalagher, joined in studio for the first segment by Nelson Zide of ERA Key in Framingham. Nelson, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Bob, and I'm very happy to be at another exciting segment.
They're all exciting.
They're all exciting.
Yes.
That's what I said, another exciting segment.
Each more exciting than the last.
Oh, absolutely. We get more excited as we go along.
What's not to be excited about in real estate? I mean, tell us what's going on right now in your neck of the woods.
Snow, and more snow. Oh, no, that's something different.
Haven't you had enough of it, honestly?
Oh, God. Snow does not help the real estate market. Let me tell you, it does not help the real estate market.
Would you say we have more inventory this time of year? Well, compare this February to last February.
We have less this year.
Really? You think it's even less?
There's less inventory without a doubt in my mind.
Wow.
And we didn't have much inventory last February.
Yeah, we were starved for inventory last February.
We're even more starving.
And so it's not because there's nothing coming on, it's because they're getting snapped up super quick, right?
There was both.
Okay.
I think it's on both ends. Number one, there are a lot of homes that are coming on the market, and they're being snapped up very, very quickly. I mean, if they're priced pretty well and they show well, they are being snapped up very, very quickly because since there's not much out there, everyone is out there in whatever price range in the suburbs. I don't even want to talk about the city, which is even more nuts. But in the suburbs, between Framingham to Worcester,
right?
There is like nothing. I was doing some search for a client between $350,000 to $500,000 in the north side of Framingham. So Bob, tell me, but that's $150,000.
That's a pretty widespread in a big town.
And big town, widespread price range. And take a guess how many houses are on the market.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question before I take a guess.
Okay.
How many should be on the market? Like in that wide of a range, 20, 30 plus?
Easily 20.
Yeah.
Easily 20.
I'm going to say 10 because you're saying we're starved for inventory.
5.
Wow.
5. That's it. 5.
Wow.
And I talked to a client recently, and they're looking in that price range, and now he's moving from he was $350,000 to $450,000, now he's moving $450,000 to $5,000 because he can't. And even between $350,000 to $450,000, there were 2. And now I had 3 more. So, and I could do this in almost any price range in any town. I don't care whether you're Ashland, I don't care Holliston, Hopkinton, Westboro, Northboro, Framingham, Natick, Wayland, Maynard. It doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
The inventory in any one particular price range is at such a low ebb that people are making really quick offers. They're snapping them up. If they show decently, they are not lasting. And there are a lot of agents who are putting homes on, let's say on a Thursday, and they're saying no showings to the Sunday open house.
Yep.
And then they get a zoo at the Sunday open house. And then we'll review all offers on Monday. And invariably, they're going to have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 offers.
Wow.
And I'll give you another example. Can I give you another example?
Yeah, please do.
I had a 2-family client, and he was up to like $350,000 in Framingham. North or south side, didn't make any difference. He wanted a nice 2-family for him and his almost new family. His wife is very pregnant. So we found a home in downtown Framingham. The owner had redid the whole house.
Wow.
It was a 3-bedroom on the first floor. It was a 5-bedroom on the second and third floor because they finished the third floor. New kitchens, new bathrooms. It was very, very nice. Not in a great area of the town.
Right.
Okay, small yard, but it was a big house. They put it on for $345,000. They had an open house Saturday and Sunday. It was a bloody zoo. Wow. They almost needed a cop to direct traffic on this small side street. Thankfully, there was no snow at the time.
Wow.
It was before all the snowstorm.
Yeah, which was only 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago, not long ago. My buyer came in at $365,000. There were multiple offers on Monday. There were at least 20, according to the listing agent. 20 offers on this 2-family. My buyer wasn't close. Wow. It ended up closing for $390,000. $45,000 above asking in downtown Framingham. Wow. Nuts. Now, it was big. Admittedly, it was a very large place.
Right.
And the owner had redone everything. So, I mean, it was not, new kitchens, new bathrooms.
Okay, so
and
it was
of course,
nice.
it was, they didn't have to do anything. Siding, windows, roof. It was all redone. But 15, 16 offers and must have had 50, 60 people in 2 days at the open house and selling for $45,000 above asking. That to me is a little much.
Now, I have a question for you, Nelson.
No question. Oh, no.
Did you ever think that it would get this crazy to the point where you'd sell a multifamily in downtown Framingham for 10 or 12% over asking price?
Not in the slightest. And this was like the third one my buyer missed out on. Because the other two also sold for more money.
Right.
We looked at another one that he should have made an offer. I really feel bad for the couple because they had an opportunity to look at it before it hit the market, and they waited. It was an agent in my office. They told me about it, was going on the market. I told my guys, get over here. No competition. You can see it. You can get there. Fine. By the time they went, it was on the market. First day on the market, $300,000 in a poorer area. It was in an industrial area.
Oof.
It was behind Walgreens, and it's all industrial. I mean, there was some residential properties, but it was
predominantly industrial.
Right. Predominantly, it was on for $300,000, 2 small apartments. One was redone on the second floor. First floor was not redone. It was rented.
Yeah.
Okay. Old, 100-plus-year-old. I mean, it was an okay building for $300,000. First day on the market, my listing agent had 6 offers on it. 4 were over full price. The seller decided to take the offer that was cash. We have a lot of cash deals. Cash, no inspections, as is, full price. And the seller could have gotten more money. He says, you know what, I want cash, no inspections. And cash, no inspections will rule over anything.
Yeah.
Rule.
Yeah.
So
no problems and you're done.
We're done. I don't have to worry about appraisals. Don't have to worry about anything. We're done.
So I have another question for you.
Okay.
What is driving the massive demand right now? Is it strictly a question of supply and demand?
Yes.
How do we fix it, Nelson? That's my question for you. How do we fix it?
I want all your listeners to call me and list their homes today.
That's the way we fix it.
That's how we...
Everybody just trade houses.
Trade houses. Well, you know what? Here's part of the problem is, it's not a simple problem. Number one, you still have some sellers who want to sell, but they're underwater. So right away, you still have some of those, and they don't. I mean, I'm still dealing with a few short sales. There's not as many, obviously, but a few. And you deal with a few foreclosures. There's not that many. So you still have some sellers underwater. And if they're underwater, yeah, they may sell on a short sale, but they're not buying. So they're selling, but they're not buying, so you're only getting one end of the spectrum. Because if they were going to buy, then you may have a little bit more in the next step up.
Right.
Okay, but number one, they're underwater. I have at least one other seller who's underwater, and he would love to sell, and he can't. So I think that's part of the problem. Number two, there are people who remember what it was like in our downturn of not being able to work, having a tough time making the payments, and they're very much afraid of making the step up. And they may be in their first home or their second home, and their homes are worth $275, $300, $350, $400. But for them to go to $500, $550, $600, they are scared to death.
Right.
And they said, I'm comfortable. I can deal with my payments. As a matter of fact, they'll go back and refi through the finest lender I know, who's Bob Kalagher at Ross Mortgage.
Well, thank you, Nelson.
I just want to let you know that.
Yeah, thank you for reading that off the note.
I did that. Thank you for giving it. It's about 20 feet high. I can't miss it. But, I mean, they'll go back and refi for a lower rate, and all of a sudden they said, I'm comfortable. I don't have to move. And, as much as I like to, I don't have to. And when you don't have to move, it makes life a lot more difficult to having more inventory.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm seeing a lot of the houses that I'm having on, it's more the sellers have to move for a particular reason, retiring, too big, they need a smaller place, they're moving out of the area. I'm not seeing that many homes on the market where you're doing the upsizing.
Right.
Well, I'm going to sell my 350 home and I'm going to buy my 550 home.
Right.
And unfortunately, I think for a lot of those 350 to 400 sellers, they should start rethinking that position.
So what should they do?
Well, one of the things that I'm suggesting to some of my sellers, which there is a risk. I'm not going to say there is not a risk. There is a risk. But because the demand is high and inventory is low, you may want to go out and buy first. Get a house because there's not much inventory. Find a house you want to buy.
You're right.
Okay. And negotiate a longer than normal closing date. Now, I know that's difficult. You can't, rate lock-ins, I think, are 45, 60 days.
60, yeah.
Okay, so if you're going 90-day closing, you can't lock in a rate. And
you can, but it costs money.
It costs money. And there is some concern that if I go 90 or 120 and the seller will let me do that, that the rates may go up a little bit, and they may. I'm not going to. Indications are, and you know this a lot better than I do, but indications are that the rates are still going to stay right around that 4%, maybe a little bit lower, maybe a tad higher, but
for a little while,
at least to the first of the year. That's what I've been told, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, till the fall. Let's say till the fall.
Okay,
yeah.
So if you're thinking of doing something now, I would go and look for a house you want to buy. And you know what? Even if you paid a premium on the price, and they'll give you 90 to 120 days, that gives you 30 to 60 days to get a buyer of easiness, because it takes about 45 days from the day you close to get a buyer to close. So you've got 2.5 months. If your house is ready to sell and it's priced appropriately and shows well, it's moving within weeks.
Right.
And
sometimes days.
Days. Sometimes hours.
Sometimes hours. I never thought I'd see the day.
Hours. And then you can always go back to the seller, and when you negotiate that new purchase first, you say, I want to close on or before 90 days or on or before 120 days. So if I can close in 45 days, 60 days on my home, I'll close with you sooner. So now you got the house you want to buy. You've negotiated, yes, a buffer. You are taking the risk. You may, if your house doesn't sell, well, yeah, you have a risk of your deposit. I mean, I'm not going to say there's no risks involved. But when I'm seeing houses selling within hours, days, I mean, now they got to show well, and they got to be priced well. I mean, you can't have a $300,000 home and price it at $4 and say, I'm going to sell that in a day. It ain't going to happen.
Wait a year, you might, though.
Yeah, well, in downtown Boston, you may, but I mean...
downtown Boston, I don't think you can get anything with 400 anymore.
No, we don't even talk about downtown. Even Roxbury is a whole different ballgame these days. But I'm just saying, everything I'm seeing is selling. If the seller is not trying to be exceptionally aggressive, that's the word, with their price, they're moving very, very quickly.
All right, well, that's a great idea, Nelson. Let's give out your contact information. It's Nelson Zide from ERA Key Real Estate in Framingham. Best number to reach Nelson is 508-277-7794. Again, it's 508-277-7794. You can text him at that number, or you can also email him at nelson@nelsonzide.com. That's a real hard one to recommend. Remember.
It's a hard one to remember, especially for me, because I'm old, so I need the easy ones.
That's why you had to create that email address.
I had to create that so I can remember it.
Yeah. So it's going back to the craziness in the markets right now. Right. Do you think it's time that cities and towns are going to have to change zoning requirements so that we can start building again? Because I don't see any other way to fix the problem. Do you?
No. Obviously new construction can help the situation, and it can't be the McMansion new construction.
No, that's a good point.
That's part of the problem is there's very little being built these days. I mean, and this is nothing against Toll Brothers or Pulte, the large national builders. I mean, their model is upscale housing.
Right.
And if they're going to do upscale housing, it doesn't help that first-time home buyer.
No.
They can't go in and buy $455,000, $600,000, $700,000.
No.
It's not them.
What we need what we had in the 80s and 90s, where you had these massive areas that you'd put up split levels and expanded ranches. That's the only way I see of solving the crisis.
Right.
Or it's going to have to all be condos at this point. I mean, there's not a lot of other options.
No. And the problem with condos is that most of the towns have the permitting process to get a good-sized condo complex out there is most likely a year to 2 years down the road.
At least.
So if you're going to do, as a developer, a year to 2 years before you end up being able to build, you need to have some deep pockets, and therefore your prices are going to be higher rather than trying to build for more of the masses to get in.
Right.
Now, I think something else that the towns could do, which a lot of towns have a hard time doing, is you could start making it easier for single families to convert to twos, or single families to make easier in-law apartments. But if they had two families and more, and I know when you're trying to put a two-family in a residential area, it's the NIMBYs, not in my backyard.
Right.
And no one wants to have a multi, and once you just spent all this money for your single,
You're right.
I understand, but you know what? It may be an opportunity for people to get in the market because, and even multifamilies are crazy, as we mentioned earlier, but to be able to get in the marketplace and maybe be able to make their home a little more saleable, maybe even they could stay there longer if they could convert, a side area or something into a small little apartment, rented out. That rent may be just enough money to keep him in the house.
Right.
So, I think if you could do that, I also think try to make it a little bit easier, make the permitting process a little bit easier. Not the building department. I want the building department to be as strict as possible, without a question.
Oh, yeah.
But the permitting process maybe to be a little bit easier out there so more people can try to get in. But nobody in this whole area is building homes for the first-time home buyer market.
No. Well,
nobody.
They can't because, like you said, it takes years to get permits.
Yes.
Most towns, you're going to have even places like Framingham, you probably need a half an acre to build a house.
Not all, but most.
Right. I mean, you go to a town like Bolton, you need 2 acres to build a house. I
Yeah.
mean, that's just a spectacular waste of land.
And it's because there are some areas in Framingham that's still 8,000 square foot zoning, and when those sellers want to sell, what the builders are doing, they're buying the house, tearing it down, because most of those lots have 16,000 square feet, and they're building 2 houses for the cost of one.
Wow, that's smart.
So if they're going to buy that one house on retail and that's 400,000, well, they buy it, but now they have 2 lots at 400,000 with water and sewer. So it's $200,000 lot, but yet they're not building first-time homes. They're still building $500,000, $600,000
They got to
homes.
because
they have
it's
to
200,000. Yeah,
they got to.
200,000 plus the demolition.
Right. But of course, then you have some more inventory out there.
Yeah.
So those first-time home sellers who are in that 350, 450 range now could buy 556.
Right.
And now there's more for them to choose from.
Right.
Right now, when you don't have much to choose from, it's really hard.
It is. It's getting difficult. I'm going to give out your contact info again,
Thank
Nelson. If you want to get a hold of Nelson, if you're looking to buy or sell, 508-277-7794. Again, it's 508-277-7794. Or you can email him at nelson@nelsonzide.com. And Nelson, you cover pretty much all of eastern Massachusetts, right? Nelson will drive anywhere.
Well, almost anywhere.
Kidding.
I know, almost. I do mostly MetroWest.
Yeah.
I do parts of Norfolk County, going to the Rhode Island border, and parts of southern Worcester County.
Good. So if you need Nelson, give him a call. We'll be back with more Real Estate Matters after this.